If you suddenly died, what would you wish that your friends and family would do to honour the legacy of your life? It might take some careful thought, but it would be an interesting reflection. It could even make a daring icebreaker if you want to avoid small talk, right? But comment below, how would you answer that question? If you suddenly died, what would you wish that your family and friends would do to honour the legacy of your life? My first thought to answer this was like a pretty generic answer. It was something along the lines of, do something to make the world a better place. But then I thought, actually, look, you're very unlikely to improve on something without first understanding how it works or the problems that it might have. So I guess ultimately my answer to the life legacy question would be to take steps to better understand the world around you, how it works, the biggest problems it faces, and moreover, learn about the capitalist system, and more specifically neoliberalism, the form of capitalism that has been the driving force for humankind for several decades. By understanding these systems, you'd be better equipped to take steps towards making the world a better place. I recently uploaded a video to my YouTube and social media accounts, and it was titled The Top 15 Most Important Books of Our Time. Reading those books, even if it was the top 2, this one and this one, that would probably be my first choice for what I would hope people would do to honour the legacy of my life, should I suddenly die. And by the way, don't worry, I'm certainly not expecting to or planning to. If there was just one thing that people could do to honour the legacy of my life, it would be to read these 15 books. Or like I said, even just the top few. I firmly believe that these books hold genuinely very important ideas and concepts about our world. I've heard a decent critique of the book at number 15, but in the context of everything else that's there, I think the most important parts would come through. I've also made another 3 or 4 videos on these topics, the kinds of things that are covered in these books. If reading books is a bit too much of a commitment, too much to ask, then watching these videos would be the next best thing. I have a playlist on my YouTube channel, which I'll try and include a link for right here, and these videos are on my socials as well. If I died, I'd probably want these videos to be screened at my funeral. The top 15 books, why I became an activist, what radicalized me, and this one. I really think that the ideas conveyed in these videos are much more important than any personal achievements or characteristics that I may otherwise even be proud of. If I reflect on my life so far, some of the most profound moments, some of the most moments that I have the most pride in participating in, are ones where I am part of a community. They're not so much individual acts or achievements, but simply being part of a movement of people acting for the betterment of society. A really significant advantage of humans over other animals is our ability to cooperate. And I think it's a truly amazing thing to be a part of. Some perfect examples of this have been my involvement in climate activist groups such as Extinction Rebellion or Blockade Australia, or even just heading to SAGE and going to a SAGE meeting. I say all this as an introvert. I can really struggle in big groups or with meeting new people, but these have been really important moments to me when I've participated in these groups. By being active in these communities, I've seen my biggest, most important values reflected. I've seen moments of great compassion, empathy, love, care, a striving for a just and equitable future for all people, acting together to develop a world that we all deserve. If you ever see me reposting one of the plethora of posts on social media by the brilliant page Earthly Education, well, I found my way to the same understandings presented here through these books and through related communities that I've been involved with. Hint, hint, follow Earthly Education. Some other really important things that I would probably wish people would do are things that are fairly feasible just as an individual. Something like divesting your superannuation and bank accounts away from those companies that are invested in fossil fuels or weapons. Eating a plant-based diet, going vegan or vegetarian. Traveling less, consuming consciously, carefully, and consuming less. More importantly though, understanding that the crises of the world, the climate and ecological collapse, war, poverty, rising inequality, all this stuff, they're not so much your fault, but the fault of the system. The system of neoliberalism and the rich, the extremely rich, the billionaires. Think tanks, such as those that are part of the Atlas Network and their donors, the CEOs of fossil fuel companies, giant corporations, media conglomerates, and the lobbyists within their ranks that are able to get the governments to do their bidding. These are the forces that are driving rising inequality, climate and ecological collapse, war, and colonialism. If I suddenly died, I would want you to better understand these forces to honor my memory. Without understanding these forces, we can't instigate the change we need to make the world a better place. If I died, at my funeral, I would want this quote to be read. Environmentalism without class struggle is simply gardening. Culture wars are a distraction from the real problems. We shouldn't be blaming immigrants or everyday people for the issues of the world. We should be blaming capitalism, neoliberalism specifically, fossil fuel corporations, weapons manufacturers, and billionaires. If we want everyone on this planet to have good wages, quality healthcare, plenty of leisure time, much more than the current standard, thriving, connected communities, and a healthy society and environment to live in, then we need to change the system entirely. Billionaires should simply not exist. The world's richest could solve poverty and homelessness in seconds. There's enough food to feed 10 billion people at least on this planet. There's enough clothing for like 6 times the population we have. We need to instigate economic degrowth in the global north, as is described in this book. Economic degrowth in the global north could move us towards some sort of eco-socialist future where we all thrive. This kind of positive future will simply not be possible unless we unionize, protest, vote, and vote for the parties and independents that are not funded by and bought by lobbyists, and to develop and support local communities. My interest and understanding in these issues and systematic problems didn't really kick off until I was in my mid to or even late 20s. Before then, like most other people, I was just focused on, my normal interests and hobbies, like things like music, science, philosophy, all sorts. I even at one point briefly looked at self-help, but nothing that I worked on was as profound, meaningful, or important and possible to make change and have an impact on the world as these books, the 15 books I talked about in the last video, and experiences that I've had in activist communities. If I did happen to die, realistically, I would also wish that my friends and family would celebrate my personal achievements and characteristics too. I would love it if they listened to some of the albums of music that I recorded over the years. I would especially like them to be listening to The Cortex Shift and Bird Detective and Misfits of Scythia and the Norbu Pellets. There is some music I've made that I'm reasonably proud of. The track Sentience by The Cortex Shift is possibly my favorite piece of music that I've composed and recorded on. In fact, the Cortex Shift albums Eat the Rich and Steal Their Spaceships, Magic Bearded Chicken, Songs in the Key of Lunch, they all have some moments that I'm proud of as works of art that I've created. But my own artistic expression is a feeble whisper in the wind next to the mammoth problems facing the world at the moment. Issues that could be tackled, but not without first fully understanding them, and the methods in which we can make society a better place. There probably won't even be room for artistic expression in the future without moving away from neoliberalism, infinite growth economics, and capitalism in general. Human life really is a feeble, fickle little thing, very insignificant in the scheme of the world and the universe at large. But there's nothing quite like improving it for yourself and those around you. If I died, I'd want my friends and family to know what's really going on out there and what they can do to counteract it, to make the life better for themselves and for everyone, and to avoid the worst of climate catastrophe and future conflict. I found it really interesting that both Dr. Karl's little book of climate change science which is a very scientific and not particularly radical book. That and The Invisible Doctrine, which explains neoliberalism and is much more critical of it. Both of these books come to much the same realization. These are two books from my top 15 books video. They both talk about how during World War II, and I think it's World War II that they're referring to, certainly a world war, societies had to undergo significant sacrifices. People willingly rationed their food, moved their labor and work to shift focus towards war efforts. They shared car rides to save fuel, all sorts of various significant lifestyle changes. They sacrificed all sorts of normal things in their lives, simply because they're at war and they knew that there was no choice. Both of these books take this example, point out that people were accepting of the necessity of what they had to do. But both of them also say that we need to instigate this kind of action right now. Both this book and this one point out that we need that warlike mentality, a realization of catastrophe in the way we currently live our lives. The climate crisis, the climate and ecological crisis, wars, division, inequality. Each of these things exist because of the excess of capitalism, of neoliberalism. Each of these problems compound and make each other worse. We need a systematic shift. We need to make sacrifices, and we need to come to terms with the state of emergency that we're in and that we're rushing towards. Because we are very resilient and adaptable as humans, and we can put better systems in place. Billionaires should not exist, but they do. If I suddenly died, I would honestly wish that my friends and family would understand these ideas to honor the legacy of my life. They might check out these few videos that I've made, these books that I've referenced, or even just have a cheeky follow on an account like Earthly Education and become interested in the kinds of concepts and things that are mentioned there. That's my take on the question, at least. So, if you suddenly died, what would you wish that your friends and family would do to honor the legacy of your life?